pleasure to welcome Steve Bridges, Steve Soberoff, Captain Steve.
Whatever.
The captain?
Yeah, whatever you're
to Iowa City
comfortable
people.
with.
Steve, this is a production of the Iowa City Public Library, and it's intended to share the stories of people that are doing really interesting things and whose stories have had an influence on life in Iowa City and our community in very interesting ways. So
Then why am I here?
Well, hopefully you're going to explain why you're here.
Yeah.
No, you were selected because you own a radio station. You've been on the radio for 51 years, which is an amazing achievement. And you are so committed to this community and covering our local news that many of us who miss those days when we had a lot more than just one locally owned station think it's pretty remarkable and noteworthy, and so that's why you were invited to be our guest on Iowa City People. So we're going to start with just talking about today. You are the owner of KCJJ, which transmits on, is it 10,000 watts?
10,000 watts.
Okay, on 1630
1630.
AM.
And 1640, 1620, sometimes over 720.
And this may be the way this goes. You ask why you're here. You also recently, well, a couple of years ago now, when was it, 2013, that you resurrected KFMH.
Yeah.
For those of us who grew up in eastern Iowa, western Illinois, northern Missouri, I think everybody knew KFMH in the 60s, 70s,
It was a
and
popular
80s.
station.
It was huge.
Yeah.
It was the first place I heard all kinds of songs, and I think that influence certainly influenced a lot of us anyway. So you started in radio, though, at what, the age of 10?
No, 14.
14.
Well, 15 in radio. 14, I worked with Junior Achievement out of Moline High School, and I
Okay.
got a job, a new station just signed on in the Quad Cities, Channel 8. And I would help on the set of Jungle J
Oh my gosh.
and Dr. Igor and the local programs
I did not know this.
that
Okay.
they had at the time. Yeah, I was on many occasions the operation, the guy under the sheet on Dr. Igor, and then I was Bigfoot Barney's cousin.
Oh my gosh, this is really taking me back. I haven't thought about those shows in a long time. So how did you transition from television to radio?
We had a show on Jungle. We had a plot going. We'd have these little plots going, these skits going every week. Sounds odd, but it's true. And one series of events was that Bigfoot Barney was in jail, and they jailed him, and he was Jungle Jay's best friend, and we had to figure out how to get him out of jail. And it was 4:45, it was a Friday, we had to end the skit. They had, Ramar the Jungle or one of their jungle movies on, and everybody's going, how are we going to end this thing? And I said, why don't we just pay off the judge? And and everybody's looking at the kid going, that kid's funny. Yeah, let's pay off the judge. Well, at the time, the station was owned by a judge and a bunch of lawyers, and they didn't think it was funny.
Uh-oh.
And the adults turned to me and said, it was the 14-year-old's idea. And they called me in and they let me go. And I didn't think you could be fired from Junior Achievement, but they let me go. And one of the guys there said, they're looking for somebody in Geneseo, Illinois. I got a friend that owns a station there. And I drove up, had my dad drive me up that day, and walked in, and he said, have you ever had experience? I said, no, I can do this. I can do this blindfold. I can do it. Okay, you start June the 4th. It was Friday, June the 4th. And my dad said, okay, I'll drive you there, because he knew how bad I wanted to be in radio since I was 4.
Really?
So he drove me that Friday, and then Monday came along, and he goes, don't speed, because I had a permit, I was 15, don't speed. Don't get picked up, or I'm going to say you took the car. And I drove I got a release from high school at 2. I got to Geneseo about 2:45. I went on the air at 3 till they signed off. They signed off at dark.
Okay.
And I worked through high school there.
Oh my gosh.
But I drove back and forth to Geneseo, and then I came up here to school, and I worked in Cedar Rapids, and then I had a chance to work at KSTT in Davenport, and that was a hometown station, and everybody, wanted to. I just wanted to work there so bad, and I managed to get on the weekends, and then I managed to get on full time. I worked there about 4.5 years.
So your dad obviously knew your passion.
My dad's, that was my dad wanted to do that.
Was your dad in broadcast? I mean, how did you get
He
into
wanted
this
to be a disc jockey, and he just never, he went to law school. My dad came up with unemployment compensation. He was on a panel while he was in law school and afterward to devise what we still use as unemployment compensation, as that template. And he had 3 kids, and he stayed with that. But he knew. My grandfather had a butcher shop in Rock Island, and he had this Philco radio, which I still have, up on the shelf. And I was 4 years old, and for some reason, when my brothers would go to sleep, my dad, when the butcher shop closed, we got the radio, and my dad would take that radio down from the cupboard, and we'd listen to the disc jockeys. And that's all I wanted to do, and I had a transmitter. One of my first presents that I really wanted was, and I still have it, was a transmitter that would go a couple blocks around the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh.
And then I was on the air like at 7 doing that. And then when I was 9, I met a kid that's father knew how to soup up the transmitter. And then it would serve a good, at least all of Moline.
A couple blocks? Oh,
yeah,
all of Moline. Oh my gosh,
it
that's
was putting
amazing.
out like 150 watts or some damn thing. It was just, but I always wanted to, this is all I've ever wanted to do. I don't know why. I have no idea why.
And was Mom at home?
Yes.
Tell me about your family. I don't know this side.
She had a very defeatist attitude. God bless her, but
okay.
she had a very, it just, the family was different, and we dealt with my brother's mental illness for a lot of my growing up, and my adulthood. I've still dealt with it. So it was a little dysfunctional, and my dad was encouraging. My mom wasn't encouraging, and she didn't think radio was going to amount to anything, and I wasn't going to be able to do it, and it was going to be failure and doom and gloom. And she held that attitude pretty much till 2 years before she died.
Oh my goodness.
And
That's
then all
too
of a
bad.
sudden it changed.
Well, I'm glad that she saw your success. I mean, you're the voice of Eastern Iowa.
Sure I am.
Sure you are.
You know, I don't, I mean,
you
I've been on a long time.
You probably don't think of yourself that way.
I
You
don't think,
have an
I don't
idea
know
of your influence,
how to look
do
at
you?
myself.
You don't?
I really don't. I don't,
Well, how do you think other people look at you?
I don't know. Troublemaker,
Now, why do you say
loudmouth,
that? Troublemaker,
uppity,
loudmouth.
upstart. I don't know. I just know. I mean, I hope they look at the stuff at the station now, KCJJ, and I hope they look at it, you know, as the community station. Because, I mean, we've got a really good staff there, and we really care about the community. The station does okay. I'm not going to say the station doesn't, but it could make a lot more money if it ran like the other stations. And, you know, but we've got a live staff all the time, and we've got 10 people. And so, you know, that's a lot, and we pay pretty well. I'm proud that we've been able to keep this. You know, some of the staff. Tom's been with me 22 years.
You're talking about Tom Suter.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm proud of what the station does. I hope the community sees that. part of the station. I believe they do. We have a lot of fun, and we don't take ourselves too seriously. And I always say I'm an acquired taste. You might listen to me the first time and go, Jesus, what's wrong with that guy? Or, you know, but I mean, my main goal when I go in there in the morning is to, people got so much crap going on in their lives. They got their families and the worries about their bills and worries about, you know, if they watch the news, they want to, you know, they got worries here and there. And I don't want to be one of those worries. If I handle something heavy or I go into politics or whatever, I always want to come out with a joke or something. I just want to make people feel a little better that they tune us in.
So by spending time with you, which I think many of us do every morning, you're on the air from 5 till 10:30,
And I know you
11-ish.
listen right at 5. You turn it on every.
I often do.
Why? It's early. It's
I
dark
know,
out.
It's dark out because I'm getting my head around what's going to happen for me that day. And more often than not, you've got music playing now, and then you and Jim come on at about 5:30 and
Yeah.
sometimes talk about serious things, sometimes not. But I think what sets your station apart, and the reason that we're excited that you're part of Iowa City People, is that you have local news. You have local reporters who are out covering things. You cover high school sports. You do police reports, which are often a hoot because they have a little spin on them. But I'm sorry, some of the people, you know, people's mistakes and what leads to their arrest.
People make bad decisions at times.
Right, those bad decisions are sometimes humorous in your hands. You know, when there's a disaster, you and I had recently talked about this as we record this in April or spring of 2016, that we have just passed the 10-year anniversary of a tornado hitting Iowa City and causing considerable damage. Thankfully, no one was seriously hurt. But so many of us were huddled in basements or closets or wherever, trying to find out what was happening, and your station was the only one that was on the air with you in the newsroom. I don't think I've ever asked you, I hope you were in a safe place, but I'm thinking you probably weren't.
We didn't even think about it.
You were just providing information.
Yeah,
Anyway, you had gone.
I had gone out to the station with Jan, and Jan was doing some things with the files, and she was working at the station, my wife, Jan. Mm-hmm. And we knew there were going to be storms. We didn't know there were going to be tornadoes. And that and our flood coverage is what I'm most proud of. I mean, we were on the air live 24 hours a day for 10 days. And see, we were operating out of our temporary studios. Tom was operating out of his house. Jan was doing the business office on our kitchen table. We were the only ones. The other station wasn't allowed to eliminate their programming and go flood coverage. But we were there for 10 days, 24 hours a day. My staff was great. Nobody complained. They came in. We even covered high school games if we could, if they could hold them. I'm very proud of that. The tornado, we had a bunch of great listeners. One guy drove around and reported on the tornado in the parking lot of Walmart. and right. two tornadoes, he said. And I mean, we stayed with those people through the next day. Mm-hmm. That's what radio should do. Radio, in my opinion, should be local, and I'm proud that we're local. And the other thing I'm proud of is, and it's not, it really has nothing to do with me the second time around. I put KFMH on the air in '73. It came off in 1994. Radio station was going to steal what I considered to be my ideas. And my idea was 99 plus KFMH and the Pirate Aura and all. And I came up with all that, and they were going to use it, and we got lawyers, and we started saber rattling each other. And we won. But I had to use it. Mm-hmm. And I said to Tom, well, now what do we do? He goes, well, let's put it on the internet. And I didn't know anything about the internet as far as radio goes. I knew that people were on there. Mm-hmm. I knew that we were on there on Ustream, but I didn't know, how do you bring back a station that's been gone 19 years? And I got together with a bunch of the old disc jockeys and volunteering their time this time. Some of them were in radio and others are not, but they all get together on a keyboard and a computer, and wherever they are, they do their shows, and it comes into my basement, and they assemble it, and it's like there's an hour delay between the time they do it and the time it goes on, or it could be longer. But we can play requests on most of the shows, and I didn't think we could resurrect it again, and now the thing's got like, 20,000 some listeners a day or more, and it's not making money, but I think it's the future. I think one day you'll get in the car and you'll hit, in a lot of cars you can do this anyway, you'll hit the like the TuneIn app and type in KFMH and it'll be there. But KFMH surprised the heck out of me that Tom said, well, how do we get this, what should we do? And I said, well, first of all, we should figure out where we're going to get the money to put the equipment together. And the equipment and everything was about 20, and the royalties and everything you have to do is $25,000 a year. And I said, well, let's put a goal of 20. You got to make 20 or we're not going to do it. And Tom said, well, how much you think we'll make? I said, about 600. I did too.
Serious?
And so we got on that week on KCJJ, and we said we're going to try this out. If we, we're going to see what we can build. This Friday, I had all the DJs that had signed it off coming back. I said, let's, we're going to 3 o'clock. We're going to go to KFMH. If nothing else, it'll be a fun afternoon and evening of nostalgia. And so we went on the air on a Friday at 3 o'clock. We sold advertising that week, went on and got in the air, and people started calling in. And at the end of the night, we had raised $25,000. And we put it on. Called up Justin Roberts from Channel 2, who does our tech work on KFMH, and he said, well, I'll put together whatever. I don't even know enough about it to know it. But basically it's 3 computers and in a rack, in a 6-foot rack in my basement. And on March the 14th, at like 3:20 in the afternoon, he hit he hit the enter key, and he goes, "Okay, you're on the air," and it's been on now, and it's over its 3rd year. So
the magic of being able to crowdfund a project like that, do you think comes from the fact that you are so well established in this community? The people know that they can count on you. You've got a really big listener base here, right?
It's
your
huge.
Number? Share some numbers if you would.
It's dominant here.
It's dominant.
We're dominant.
Okay.
KCJJ is dominant, and we don't take it for granted. I mean, as flippant as I can get, and sometimes I'll fight with callers, I think that every listener that's listened for longer than a day and a half knows I'm full of crap, and they go along with it. And because it's, I mean, the thing that really will get Jan just inflamed, and Jan's kind of like me. She gets inflamed pretty easy. But the thing that will get her just going is when people come up to her and go, "How can you be married to him?" It's a show. It's a show, and you know this from doing TV news. I mean, you're a different. It's a character. It's a show, and I don't take it. I mean, I can't take myself too seriously with it. It's, you know, there are people out there that are freaking working their butt off, and they're digging, or they're ditches, or they're in construction, or I'm just, I'm having a good time in the morning. And
you're having a good time, but I also think about the lost pets that, here is a place where you can call and say, our dog Fluffy, whoever, is missing, and you broadcast that, and at least when I've been listening, 9 times out of 10, somebody will call and say, oh, I think I might have found that dog. To have that kind of a connection in a community is what makes Iowa City really special, what makes, in my opinion, KCJJ really special. And Steve, I don't think that you can discount the power of the community involvement. I mean, you all have broadcast a radiothon for Table to Table for I don't know how many years. Talk about how that got started.
That's probably
raises thousands
the proudest
and thousands
I am
of
of
dollars,
the station.
Right?
Oh yeah. Last year I think it was 38 or 39,000. Table to Table. Somebody had the great idea, and Tom Suter has spearheaded a lot of this on behalf of the station and on behalf of the organization. They had, well, look at all this food we're putting, the waste, all these restaurants that have to dump everything, or cafeterias or grocery stores, they have to dump it. At the end of the night, it's fresh food, it's good food. And they go out and they distribute it. We've got a lot of great people that volunteer for Table to Table. We've got a lot of great organizations that give the food. And 1 out of every 5 in our community. You drive around this community, and you've driven around in the community, and you look and you see the houses and all the construction going up, and you think we're in a utopia, because look at all this growth. But 1 out of every 5 in every economic background, poor, middle class, upper class, at one time or another uses Table to Table. And we've got the figures, and it always holds up. It's 1 out of every 5. You might be doing really good one day, and the next day you're taking care of your parents, or your child has an illness. With me, we do okay. I'm not complaining, but I got cancer. And, there was some months before I went on Medicare where things were darn tight. And we thought we were going to, have to eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And then I just said, hey, we got a Discover card. If I'm going to die, I'm going to run up the interest. But I mean, it was scary for a but I mean, there's so many, people that fall in, and you don't know. And Table to Table, it's, over 1 million pounds is saved from the landfill and given to families and children. And
amazing.
So, I mean, I am really proud of that we're affiliated with them.
Well, and that's
what we do.
The bedrock of your community involvement. But I think about what you offer the library, for example, the half hour that you give us that we could not afford to pay for.
We give over $275,000 in airtime every year.
Phenomenal.
If we, it's like when the storm hits at 11:15 and Jan goes, "Where are you going?" And she comes to, but she goes, "Where are you going?" I said, "If we don't do this, nobody is going to do that. There's nobody at the other stations. It's a machine." And sometimes that weighs on you. I'm an old dinosaur, and I think you have to do this stuff. sometimes to the detriment of your bottom line. I mean, we do high school sports. The only sports we make money off of, per se, football. The rest of the sports, I mean, when we do the summer sports, but I think we have to do that. I mean, I think we'll make the money up somewhere else, is my theory. Some years it works and some years it doesn't, but I think you have to do that. Those kids playing those games, even in the summer, deserve coverage. Those kids work hard and they practice hard. And there's people, I mean, we're on the stream now. We hear from grandparents and cousins and, divorced people that are in different parts of the country now. And they come to the station to hear that. It just, so when I found out this station was for sale, I go, I could live in, and we just had sold KFMH. I thought, I could live in Iowa City. And that was just, I love Iowa City. I loved it. 67, I came here. I had my fake ID taken from John's Grocery. I mean, just love this place. It's a great freaking community. And sometimes I get critical about it, but that's the way I am, but it cannot be said. I just absolutely love it. It's a religious experience for me to sit in Kinnick on those Saturdays next to Bud Supple.
And you talk a lot about having the students around and how important they are to our economy, as well as just, that's one aspect of living in Iowa City that I also love, to feel their energy, to hear their ideas, to see that enthusiasm, to be reminded of my own idealism and whatever else. It's hopeful to me. So as you look at your grandchildren, and you've got a couple of them, which maybe you'll talk about.
I would say that they're the cutest grandchildren
in the world, right?
Washington Post said it. I didn't. I have it up on my wall. They came here during the caucus and took a picture of them and put it on the front page of the Washington Post, the newspaper of record. So I would say that they are the cutest grandchildren.
Okay, well, what would the cutest grandchildren then say about their grandpa?
He lets me get away with anything. He gives me sugar and caffeine before I go home. I don't. They both like it that I just lucked out again, because my son, he's just never disappointed me. He's just he's like he's got my humor. I can see my humor in him, but it's tempered with Jan. He's got a PhD. He's teaching at a university. I mean, I can't even fathom. And he married someone who's got one master's and is going for another master's, and she's great. She's just freaking the perfect daughter-in-law, and they're great parents, and
That's sweet.
She is. I've just been real fortunate.
So what's next? When we were coming upstairs, you talked a little bit about.
Well, there's so I see somebody
perhaps?
digging a 6-foot hole.
Okay.
What's next? It's gonna eventually it's a retirement. I'm 67 years old, and I've been doing this 51 years, and I don't know how long I'll do it. Some days, some mornings I get up and let's do her, and some mornings it's become a chore. It got that, when you have some illness or something and you realize that, it's, and then and I go downtown, and I mean, there's so many beautiful, beautiful women and co-eds in it, and it's like, and I'm looking at myself going, I'm invisible. They can't see me. You realize what your age and there is, I think I owe Jan some years where I don't have to get up at 5 and we can just do what the heck we want to do. I don't know that it's there yet, because that's one part of me, and the other part of me is, what am I going to do? I don't have any hobbies. I don't have, other than I've got KFMH in my basement. I don't really have any hobbies, and so I don't know. I mean, I don't work like that. I don't, my next goal is to go to Texas Roadhouse Friday night or something. I don't work and say, well, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do, or I'm going to do that. I know that I will retire, and whatever we do from there.
Okay. I'm curious what you read.
I tell people on the air I don't, but
I know that's not true.
I like biographies. I read. I have ADHD. Only they didn't diagnose it back then as anything. I have a hard time reading. I always have. It was a problem when I was in school, but I have good memorization skills of what I do read. But I do like to read biographies, and I read a lot of periodicals. I like coming to the library and going through all newspapers. That fascinates me, because this isn't someone's opinion, over a long period of time. These are snap judgments that are there. This is what happened right now, and I like to do that. And then if I find something that interests me, then I'll get a book to correspond with it.
That's great. I don't read very many biographies. I've started to get into it a little bit more. I think I always thought they were dry and boring, but I find now, no, it was just me. I think you have different ages and stages.
Johnny Carson is a great biography. Ted Turner has a great book out, and I really respect him. He's done so much.
Yeah.
He basically came up with this idea, this CNN thing, and it changed the whole world. We saw Tiananmen Square. We saw the wall fall. We saw this. He changed the world. Ed Kooky Burns, I've got his biography, Kooky No More. I got to meet. Remember Ed Burns?
I do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Oh my gosh.
I got to meet him.
Cool. You're making your own waves here.
I'm not really a day-to-day KFMH guy, and that's why I don't. I let the disc jockeys. I'm 67, and the station wasn't really programmed for me. I let them. They're playing Wilco, and they're playing stuff that I don't know what the hell they're playing. But I don't interfere with it. I do a blues show on Saturday nights. But I let them, for the most part, handle the music and do that.
It's cool. Not too many places where they would have that freedom and have that autonomy and be able to put together. And again, that's perhaps why the audience responds so well. And
see, when I came to KCJJ, everybody thought I was going to do KFMH on KCJJ, and it wouldn't have worked at all. And at the time, it was 1,000 watts.
I didn't know that.
It was bad. And I'm a top, even when I was at KFMH all that time, I'm a top 40 disc jockey. Whether it's top 40 rock or it's top 40 country or whatever, that's what I am, that's what I believe, and I believe in mass appeal. I don't believe in a narrow, and I have so many people that I've known for a long time, and they'll come up to me and I'll play the latest Nelly song, which is great. The song is great. And they go, why, they want me to play the Supremes and the Beatles and all this stuff. I'm sick of it. I'm just tired of it. I love it. It's great music and everything, but so is stuff coming out today. So is the new Nelly song, and so is the new Skylar song, and so is, all this music coming out today. There's a lot of great stuff. And you have to live in the now. You can't just say, why are you doing this or that or the other. You got to. When I bought the KCJJ, I didn't look at it like I'm buying an AM station or an old folk station. I bought a radio station. And, I don't care where it's at, just so people can hear it.
Well, we're awfully grateful it's here in Iowa City, and you help us all live in the now. And I think that's where we're going to wrap things up. Thank you.
We could tell some old
very
stories.
Much.
I could tell some
more
stories about Patty. We'd need another 3 hours. Thank you for having me.